Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Rose and Poe by Jack Todd, narrated by Nigel Patterson. If by your art, my dearest father, you have put the wild waters in this roar, allay them. William Shakespeare, The Tempest. Prologue. If you, a traveller, should one day pass along the banks of the pristine Belle Coeur River, at the northernmost extremity of this great country, you will hear a dozen versions of the legend of Poe the Giant and his mother Rose, and of the events that befell them. The people of northern New England are famously taciturn, but given a good yarn, they can't resist improving it a little. Like the child's game, the tale, as it is passed from mouth to ear, becomes a bit of a stretch, then expands to outright fabrication, and so on, until it takes on a mythic cast, as though handed down from the gods to the first peoples on earth. If you keep a notebook close at hand, you might fill page after page with observations on Poe the Giant, and yet you will be hard put to distinguish fact from old wives' tales, because the truest thing about Poe is that he was passing strange, and some of the folklore that has accrued to his name is as accurate as a compass needle, although fancy more often has its way, as a sampler from our own notebooks will show. They say that Poe was tall enough to grab the weather vane atop a barn and bend it so that it would always follow the track of the full moon. It is claimed that Poe had 18 fingers and 3 eyes. His teeth were the size of dominoes and just as black. A tiny troll lived inside the hump on his back, and was let out at night to make mischief hither and yon. On summer nights Poe climbed a towering beech tree and slept in its branches like a bear, attended by all manner of mysterious and sometimes ferocious creatures. After the events chronicled here, the tales told about Poe Didelot and his mother Rose became darker, but not a whit more true. That they persist to this day is a tribute to the human tendency to cling to a falsehood, even when the unadorned truth stands before us, solid and incontrovertible as an oak tree. The fabrications of decades cannot be swept away with a wave of the hand, but there is surely no harm in attempting to set down the truth for posterity, or preparing the visitor for an excursion to a part of this country that may seem like the setting for a dark fairy tale. The truth is simpler. Rose and Poe were of the earth itself, formed of its clay, great souls adrift in a world that grows smaller by the day. This is their story. The rest is memory and metaphor. 1. Goatman. Poe at dawn. The giant Poe, 6-fingered and 6-toed, clambers up the rocky hillside to the goat pasture. He is quick and agile for a man of his size, and from a distance he resembles a great black bear as he scrabbles over the rough ground, ignoring the brambles that tug at his legs, the sharp edges of granite that could slash a finger or toe, the burrs that cling to his coveralls. He is barefoot, and the extra fingers and toes help his calloused feet and hands grip the rock, as he works his way over stones and boulders, gullies and sinkholes, past outcrops, fissures and ravines, and through a narrow gravelled draw. In his wide footprints, oval pools emerge, where luminescent dragonflies will skitter through the hot afternoon. The wide gravel county road is a far easier route to the top, but Poe gave that up years ago. On the road, teenage boys in pickup trucks called him Goatman and Mutant, and accused him of having sexual congress with his goats. He didn't understand half of what they were saying, but when they took to throwing beer bottles at him, and a bottle split his eyebrow open, he took refuge on the rocky goat path. There he has remained, exchanging the ease of the well-travelled road for the difficult ascent of the narrow and craggy path. Poe sings as he climbs, a wild song without words. In the pale wash of light just before daybreak, his face is rapturous. This is his world, daybreak and dew and the drift of mist in the Belle Coeur valley far below. When he reaches the goat meadow, he pauses to wipe his brow with a red bandana, and pulls a fob watch on its long tarnished chain from a narrow pocket of his osh-kosh-bagosh bib overalls. He scans the time. The big hand licks like a black-tongued dog between the 1 and the 2. The small hand is on the 6, a number that looks like a bucket with a curved handle. It's one of the 2 hours he can distinguish, 6 o'clock and high noon. The first 6 o'clock means it's time to milk the goats. When the little hand joins the big hand at the top of the watch, it's lunchtime, and when the little hand meets up with the bucket number again, it's time for the evening milking. The fob watch brings order to Poe's world, parses his days 1 tick at a time. He believes there is magic in the coiled metal of its innards, that the sound he hears when he presses the watch tightly to his ear and listens wide-eyed to the tick-tock, 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 is a kind of sorcery, and Rose has magicked the device so that it will tell him the time. He winds it gently, careful not to twist too hard, because Rose says he doesn't know his own strength, and he busts things without meaning to. He hears the distant bell toll in the steeple of the Lamb of Jesus Gospel Church, and counts the strokes using the thumb and all 5 fingers of his left hand, the way Rose taught him. The bell tolls 6 times. The watch is right on time. His lips flap with glee, a stream of spittle trickles down his chin, and he dances a little jig. Right time, right time, right time. Poe slips the watch back into the pocket on his overalls, and turns in a full circle with his arms extended, inhaling the mountain air, drinking it all in. The goat-cropped, dew-soaked grass, the tamarack and hemlock, hackberry and beech trees, the way the air trembles red and yellow where the maples are turning early. Twisted ropes of fog lie in the ravines, and the rising sun is sliced through the middle by a charcoal ribbon of cloud over low mountains dark with spruce and pine. To the west, the sky is still the deep indigo of his coveralls. A woodpecker clatters somewhere, barn swallows dart after insects, a solitary crow flies due north to Canada. His friend Wild Bill says Canada is so close that Ted Williams could have stood right here in the goat meadow and hit a baseball plumb out of the country. Poe doesn't know who Ted Williams might be, but he reckons it's true if Bill says it is. The green meadow is slick with dew and fragrant with wet grass and goat shit, riven by the bells of the nanny goats. He calls them by name: Jenny Girl and Ostrich, the twins Bertha and Pearl, Roxy, Little Dipper, Maud, Lula May, Olive, Susie Q, Thelma Pearl, Aunt Nell, and Princess Sally, the pure white beauty of the flock. The nanny goats crowd round, bossy as church ladies. He lifts the latch and squeezes into the summer shed, where he stoops to fill a bucket with fragrant, dusty oats. The dust tickles his nose, and he sneezes, banging his head on the roof of the shed. Poe rubs his head and chuckles. "Damn fool, Poe," he says. "You manage to do that just about every doggone time." Back in the sunshine, the goats cluster to him, nuzzling and bleating. Impatient horns beat his rump and thighs as he fills their troughs, shaking out the contents of one bucket and then another. He steps back to watch them eat. When they finish, he upends a 3-legged stool propped against the shed and sits to milk the goats, beginning with Little Dipper and ending with Princess Sally, always in the same order, because if he milks them out of turn, they get fractious. He crouches to wash Little Dipper's bag with Rose's special concoction, a mixture of water and Clorox. He nestles his broad cheek into Dipper's warm flank and pulls, pulls, pulls in a slow and steady rhythm. The milk sounds like s, 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 as it sluices into the battered tin buckets, bubbling and frothing like witch's brew. 2 feral kittens mew at a safe distance. Poe squirts long jets of milk into their waiting mouths. When each tug yields no more than a drop or 2, he moves on to the next goat. "Come on, Susie Q. Your turn. Come to Poe, girl." The goats milked, he totes the buckets, 2 in each hand, to the gravel road, where he waits for Wild Bill de Graff and his pickup. Bill is their nearest neighbour up the mountain. Morning and evening, Bill drives Poe and his buckets of milk back downhill, waits for Rose to empty them, and hauls the empty buckets back up to the shed for the next milking. Rose turns the milk into the finest goat cheese in Belle Coeur County and pays Bill in cheese. He eases the truck alongside Poe and waits for him to load the buckets into the purpose-built box. Poe places the buckets carefully, covers them so they won't spill, and slides his bulk onto the seat, his knees up against the dash.
"Hey, Bill."
"Hey, Poe. How them goats this fine morning?"
"All good. Gotta bring an extra bucket tomorrow. Too much milk."
"That'll make some fine goat cheese when Rose gets through with it."
"Uh-huh. Ma always say, 'Poe, don't eat it all. Gotta save some for my customers.'"
"I'll bet she does. A man your size can get on the outside of a whole lot of cheese." Poe's breakfast is waiting on a yellow plate on the kitchen table. 6 eggs, scrambled with a little cheese and lots of pepper, a stack of 6 hot pancakes with maple syrup, a bowl of strawberries from the garden, a big hunk of toast with butter and strawberry jam, a pitcher of goat's milk to wash it all down. Warm milk, because he doesn't like it cold. Cold hurts his teeth. While he eats, Rose stands behind him, rubbing his huge pumpkin head.
"I swear you're getting balder every week. Your head is like a big old billiard ball." "Yes, Mama." "I'm going to have to get my cue, see if I can't bank this old head into a corner pocket."
Poe laughs. Rose can always make him laugh. When he's done, he hands her his plate and says, "Thank you kindly, ma'am," like he was taught. Then it's time to go to the outhouse to do his business. He lowers his Oshkosh-bagosh coveralls and counts the spiders, the way he does every morning. 9 spiders. He grins. 9 is a lucky number. It's going to be a good day. He wipes himself with 9 pages from the Monkey Ward catalogue, men's socks and underwear. He's careful never to use the ladies' panty pictures or the girdle and brassiere ads. Those he has tucked in a little cubbyhole to the side, against the day when he has time on his hands to gaze on the bosoms at his leisure. There's no time today. He has to get back to work on Mr. Sir Mister's wall. He primes the pump and washes up at the well out back, face and hands and the back of his neck, where it's always sunburned. Rose hands him the paper lunch bag, apples and bananas and 3 sandwiches, bologna and goat cheese on thick slices of homemade bread. She pulls his big head down to where she can kiss his cheek.
"You back to work on the wall today, Poe?" "Yes, ma'am."
"You know what I say. Give the man a full day's work and you'll get your reward in heaven."
"Yes, ma'am. I always does."
"That's my boy. You might have your addlements and particularities, Poe, but there ain't nobody like you on God's green earth. Be sure of that." The Magic of Stones. Poe is building a 1,000-foot stone wall for Prosper Thorne, a man he knows only as Mr. Sir Mister. After 4 years of labour, it is 600 feet long, with 400 feet to go. Thorne takes little interest in the wall he commissioned, but his daughter Miranda supervises the work when she's home, and sometimes helps Poe find the stones that he quarries from the fields. The stones wait in piles along the unfinished section of the wall, big stones, medium stones, small stones. With a wall this size, they ought to run out of stones, but they never do. It's a mystery to Poe how the earth heaves up new stones each spring, gifts from some place underground. The miracle never fails. A pasture that is smooth as a baby's bottom in October will be dotted with stones come April snowmelt. When he sets the stones, Poe first hefts them in his palm to find the centre of gravity. Once they're in place, he checks their fit by running his fingertips over the stones with his eyes shut tight. Wild Bill taught him to build walls that way. A wall like this one is built without mortar, so the stones must fit together like puppies at their mamma's belly, says Bill. He says, too, that a man in a hurry never gets it right, so Poe takes his time. He pauses to watch jet trails criss-cross overhead, listens to the ravens raising a ruckus in the spruce trees on the far side of the house, sniffs the warmth of the sun rising from the stones. From somewhere down in the Belle Coeur Valley, he hears the cough and gargle of a chainsaw and winces as the saw rips into a tree. Wild Bill says if death had to fart, it would sound like a chainsaw. Poe is about to start work when he sees a big black car far below, coming up the hill. The car pulls into a turnout about a quarter-mile off. A man gets out and seems to be looking up Poe's way through a pair of binoculars. Poe sees the sun flash off the lens. He shrugs, tugs off his coat, tilts the 2-gallon water jug with one finger, and drinks deep. When he looks again, the black car man is gone. Poe crouches to heft 100-pound granite stone. Bill showed him the proper way to lift the stones, crouching to take the weight on his thighs. After the first mighty heave sets the stone in place, Poe squares it with another tug or two. Then come niggling adjustments that can take an hour or more for a single stone. A nudge this way, a nudge that. Try it and look. Try again, circle around, sight along the line of the wall, walk 20 yards down to squint at it from a different vantage point, then try again with eyes closed, searching for the fit where the stone sits true, as though it had been there since the earth was formed. Poe can't read or write. He has never learned his ciphers or his letters, and he never will, but he knows stones, and he knows the wall. He knows other things too. The hollow, tinny sound goat's milk makes when it pings into an empty pail, the way the fog curls away from the rising sun, the best way to sharpen an axe and bring down the tallest tree. And he knows Miranda. At mid-morning, Poe perches on the sun-warmed stone of the half-finished wall, the water jug propped between his ankles, mopping his brow with a checkered bandana, waiting for Miranda. He hears her footsteps on the gravel path before he sees her. He holds his breath. Miranda has slim, muscular, brown legs and a cascade of wild, dark, curly hair. She's wearing blue running shorts and a thin white shirt, the kind Wild Bill calls a wife-beater. The shirt is damp with sweat, and her hard brown nipples poke through the wet fabric. Poe swallows hard, looking at her, and a low, happy gurgle bubbles from his throat. Miranda smiles. "Hey, Poe."
"Hey, Miranda. Hello, hello, good morning."
"Time for a break, Poe. I baked these for you, fresh this morning."
"Yes, ma'am. Hungry. Work hard."
"I see that, Poe. You work hard. Nobody works harder than you, heaving stones all day." Poe swings his legs back and forth, banging his heels against the wall. She leans forward to peck his cheek. He breathes deep, inhales Miranda smell. Happy, happy. Miranda hands him a brown paper bag with 8 fresh-baked brownies wrapped in wax paper. "Don't eat these all at once, Poe. Have 2 now, then you can have 4 with your lunch and 2 more in the afternoon when you get tired. It will give you energy, okay?"
2 now, 4 lunch, 2 this afternoon.
"That's it. I wrap them separately so you won't get confused. 2 in one package, then 4, then 2 again, all right? And it's hot, Poe. Be sure to drink plenty of water. If your bottle is empty, fill it in the well, but don't forget to drink. Daddy loves the wall you're making, but he wouldn't want you to get sick, so don't forget, right?"
"Poe doesn't forget."
She busses him again on the cheek. He makes the happy sound in his throat. "I've got to go get my shower now. You remember what I said about the heat, and be sure to keep your hat on, right?"
"I don't never take it off. Ma says, 'Poe, keep your hat on,' and that's what I does."
Miranda laughs, white teeth and pink tongue. Her laugh tastes like maple syrup. He watches her go until she is swallowed up by the shadows in the doorway. Brown legs, pretty, and gone. He stares at the door, pondering.
Is there a Miranda now? Does Miranda stop when she steps through the door and start again when she comes back out? Or does she stay Miranda?
The thoughts trouble him until he brushes at his eyes like a man wiping away cobwebs. Then there's Miranda and only Miranda, all the time Miranda. The thought of not Miranda is gone, and he has only her brown legs and firm buttocks and wild dark curls, and the way the muscles in her legs move when she walks. Poe hoists the jug and drinks, letting the icy water sluice down his neck and chest. He will remember what she is wearing. He can call to mind every outfit she has worn since she came home in the spring from the town where she goes to school, a place called Cane Bridge, where there are lots of smart people and no nanny goats to milk. He recalls the striped pattern of an ochre blouse, the whirls of colour on its buttons, the scarf that she wears on windy days, pale streaks of turquoise and amber and rose, running shoes some days, yellow and blue and grey, hiking boots other times, grey with blue, tied with blue shoelaces. On the hottest days, Miranda wears flip-flops, one pair blue, one pair green. Sometimes her toenails are painted red, sometimes green, sometimes no paint at all. She had red toenails the afternoon of the thunderstorm, when the ravens streaked across the valley ahead of the black towering clouds. She hurried back to the house, telling Poe to run after her, with the rain pelting all around and turning to hail, and she held the door open for him as he ducked inside, her hair dripping rainwater and her face shining and wet as she watched the storm from the kitchen window. Then she baked muffins and poured a big glass of milk for Poe, and he sat eating hot muffins as the thunder cracked, and Miranda loved the storm, and Poe loved her wet hair and the way she couldn't sit still and kept jumping up to look outside. Nights, after the light goes out, Poe takes out his remembers of Miranda and pages through them like going through the monkey ward catalogue until he falls asleep. During the long winter, when she is away at Cane Bridge, he goes back to the summer remembers until Christmas, when she comes home to ski and knocks on the door of the little yellow house in her blue jacket and red hat. "Hello, hello, Poe. I didn't forget you. I brought you the saltwater taffy that you like."
"I loves you, Miranda,"
he whispers to himself, words he has heard at the moving picture show.
"I loves you, Miranda, all my life, heart and soul, good night."
Poe returns to work on the stone wall, the scent of her skin in the air. He chooses a sun-warmed stone, hefts it into place, and nudges it a hair's width at a time, this way and that, searching for true. Watching Miranda. Thorne watches from the kitchen window, Miranda with her brownies, strolling out to visit Poe. The way the poor devil lights up like a Christmas tree when he sees her. If he were a dog, he'd be wagging his tail. He breathes in the mingled scents of the fresh brownies and Miranda's sweat. Scent of a woman, not some pricey glop cooked up in a laboratory in Paris. God, he loves it when she is home, as though life begins again. He sees Poe smile and nod and beam, repeating Miranda's instructions like a creature spellbound. He can't blame the poor bastard. Miranda is a distillation of pure light. She has that effect on people. Doctors, parking attendants, cops, shoe clerks, surly waiters, her own father. They all light up when she is around. It's always been that way, but now she's all grown up, with a woman's charms. Miranda is all the more attractive because she is so unaware of how beguiling she is, like an enchanted creature on a desert island, with her shock of dark curly hair, her olive skin, the flash of her white teeth. Spitting image of her Greek mother. The Irish half, Thorne's contribution to the making of her, is invisible except when she shows a flash of his temper. Otherwise, she is her mother, a constant reminder of Elena in the flesh, smiling, moving, breathing. Elena, 10 years gone, lives on in Miranda, in every detail. Thorne sees her kiss Poe on the cheek and walk back to the house. His heart floods with love for her, but when he sees her breasts sway under that sweaty top, he feels a stab of annoyance. Good God, you'd think she would at least put on a bra. What must it do to Poe, the sight of those candy-apple breasts in motion, the brown nipples through sheer damp cloth? He's tried to explain it to her, but there is no way to put it that doesn't sound crude. She thinks it's silly, especially where Poe is concerned. "Daddy, I've known Poe since I was a little girl. He taught me to fish. He's my friend. He doesn't think of me that way." And Thorne has to stop himself from saying, "Everybody thinks of you that way." He hears the front door open. Miranda dashes up the stairs, 2 at a time. That's his cue to get breakfast going. Breakfasts are his domain. She makes lunch and dinner, but he insists on preparing breakfast. He tells her that it pleases him to do things for his daughter, but he is also very particular about breakfast, and no one else gets it quite right, not even Miranda. He puts the cast-iron skillet on the stove to warm, adds a dollop of oil to the pan, sprinkles chopped garlic and onion and peppers, and works it with a wooden spatula until the onion begins to turn translucent, and stirs in 2 carefully beaten eggs and a freshly shredded strong cheddar. He flips the omelette at precisely the right moment, leaves it for another 30 seconds, then slides it onto a plate and sets the plate in the oven to keep warm while he starts a second omelette made with beaten egg whites and peppers for Miranda. Once it's in the pan, he pops 2 slices of whole wheat bread into the toaster. As he waits, Thorne catches a distorted reflection of himself on a copper pan dangling over the stove. In the years of his exile, he has come to look like a biblical prophet. In the hallway there is a framed cover from an old issue of Time magazine, showing him 20 years younger and wearing a flawlessly cut dark suit next to the headline, "The Toughest Trial Lawyer in America." He barely recognizes that man. His hair and beard are now long and unkempt and as white as fresh snow, and he has more the look of an aging hippie in Haight-Ashbury than a trial lawyer. And he has grown larger in his dotage. The shoulder seams of shirts that fit perfectly 10 or 20 years ago look as though they're about to split. His belly strains at the buttons. He should probably confine himself to a couple of egg whites and a grapefruit for breakfast, the way Miranda does, but that wouldn't seem like breakfast at all. When the toast pops, he butters it, then slides the second omelette onto a plate and cuts the toast precisely in 2. He arranges her plate with care, cuts slices of banana and orange to give it colour, shakes a few grains of sea salt onto his palm and dusts it over the eggs. He reaches into the cupboard for 2 glasses, sets them on the counter, and digs into the refrigerator for the jar of fresh squeezed orange juice Miranda has prepared for him. Then he pours the orange juice, slowly and carefully, over the omelette and toast, replaces the cap, and returns it to the refrigerator. He's about to retrieve the first plate from the oven when he sees the mess he has made, an egg white omelette and a slice of whole wheat toast floating in a pool of orange juice on a blue plate. Miranda's plate. His hands tremble. His gorge rises. He slides the mess into the garbage under the sink and begins a fresh omelette, but he's too frightened to concentrate on the task. He knows what's happening to him. It happened to his father. His mind is beginning to fray like an old cotton shirt. Soon it will be in tatters, and he will be able to summon only fragments of himself. He wants to call out to Miranda, but he can hear the water still running. He has a brief, disturbing image of her naked in the shower, of water streaming over her breasts and her brown belly and thighs and the thatch of dark, silky pubic hair like her mother's. Another difficulty with his mind. It dwells on things best left untouched. He stands at the kitchen counter, forcing himself to take deep, steady breaths, willing his hands to stop trembling, his heart to cease its panicky fluttering against his rib-cage. Thorne hears the shower turn off. By the time Miranda starts down the staircase, he has composed himself enough to dexterously flip the omelette, pretending that all is well with his world. In the heat of the kitchen, he pauses to embrace the womanly warmth of her in her thin terry-cloth robe, inhaling the fragrance of her damp hair. With his hands on the taut muscles of her lower back, he can feel his heart thudding against his ribs, and he wonders if she can feel it too. He breaks free of the embrace, pretending that he has to attend to breakfast. Miranda gives him a sharp look. "What's wrong with you, Daddy? You're as pale as a ghost. Look at you, your hands are shaking." "Nothing is wrong. I need my breakfast. My blood sugar's low." She looks doubtful, but she takes both plates and leads the way out to the veranda, where they can breakfast with the splendid view from the top of Manitou Mountain north into Quebec. "Really, Daddy, you have to get out more. You don't see anyone but me, and I'm only here a couple of months a year."
"You forget Poe."
"No, I don't. But Poe almost never sets foot in the house. I don't know how you can live like this. Before Mama died, you were out almost every night."
"I'm not lonely. I have my books."
"All those dusty old books. Not much for companionship."
"They're not dusty. I dust every one once a month, without fail."
Miranda tilts back her head and laughs, so like her mother when she laughs that way. If Thorne forgets everything and only one thing is left in his mind, he wants it to be that, her rich, husky laugh. But she's not...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?